I'm joined in the studio now by Claire Foord, who has set up a new organisation. It's the only organisation of its kind in South Australia, and it's called Still Aware. It's to raise awareness about stillbirth, something that, and this statistic absolutely shocked me, claims the lives of 6 babies in Australia each day. Claire lost her baby just days before she was due. And to highlight the issue, her husband and her, along with a number of other mothers who are affected, are going to walk in the city to Bay with an empty pram. Claire, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming in. And look, I think you'd be forgiven, having gone through this whole thing, to never want to talk or deal with it ever again. You've gone the absolute opposite way. Why is that?
My daughter, Alfie, 7 months ago this week, that she was born still at term. And it's for her. It's unfair if she was here, we'd be talking about her every day.
Yeah.
And people would be asking me how she is and laughing, with her as she learned, to crawl and laugh and giggle. But instead, people are, taken aback, and a lot of people don't know what to say, and so say nothing at all. But what I do know from the experiences I've had so far, it's better to say something rather than nothing. And I don't want mothers, families, and the ripple effect that stillbirth causes to happen to other people. There is an element that I believe can be changed, and stillbirth, I think, can be stopped in some degree. And there's still so much research we need to do, but before research comes awareness, and that's the reason I'm doing this for Alfie and every baby that is born still, and every family that has to go through this every day in Australia. Well,
let's talk about that. You want to raise awareness, obviously, and you talk about, I guess it's an ignorance then in the general public, so people simply avoid talking about it to you?
Look, to be honest, until Alfie was born and stillborn, that word, I believed, was a word from medieval times. I thought it happened to our grandparents.
Yeah.
I really didn't think it happened in this day and age. I don't know where it happened along the way that we stopped talking about it or people stopped believing that it happened, but I was naive in that sense as well. I felt super prepared for my pregnancy. It was an amazing 9 months that I shared with her. But the outcome, and a very adverse one at that, I was not prepared for. And to be honest, I never researched on the internet what could go wrong other than what I already knew. We talk about SIDS and we talk about things post-birth, and we're so aware of those things now, and that has really changed how we care for our babies. What we want to do through Still Aware is raise awareness that parents and mothers, particularly in their third trimester, spend more time with their children, more time with their baby, getting to know that baby, spending time with that baby and monitoring its movements and knowing what's going on in hopes to alleviate that adverse outcome.
So no one had spoken to you about a risk? And I mean, obviously then no one gets spoken to about it.
It wasn't mentioned, not even once. Well, I was in pre-labour for 3 weeks prior to when I gave birth. So it was an interesting time, but I really trusted my body, and I thought everything's going to be fine. Nothing could go wrong. It's been a terrific pregnancy, and it was an amazing pregnancy. It was, to be honest, I felt guilty because everything was going so well, and when other people have, horrible, situations, and in their ultrasound, they find something that's wrong. Everything was fine with Alfie right up until that last moment. Her heartbeat was beating strong. And so to be thrown into such a devastating and completely unbearable time that we're still travelling now was unbeknownst to me, and to be honest, was not even on my radar and was never ever mentioned to me that could be a possibility, even in a really healthy birth or healthy pregnancy.
Can I ask you, Claire, when you, as you say, thrown into that horrible circumstance, that situation, what does happen next?
I had to give birth to my baby. So, Brad and I had prepared, that's my husband, and I had prepared for everything. Like the nursery was ready, the pram was ready. We even had the car seat in the car because we were told 3 weeks prior to her birth that she could be arriving at any moment because of the way my body was going, that I was already in pre-labour. So I trusted my body. I trusted the advice that I was getting, which I still think was good advice.
Yep.
But never in my wildest dreams did I think that there was going to be any outcome other than taking our baby home from the hospital. we went in that day. It was the 12th of February that she was born, but the 11th of February was the last time that I felt her move, 2:30 in the morning. And I knew that something wasn't quite right. I felt instinctively that something wasn't quite right. She was we call her a mover and a shaker the whole pregnancy, because she really just never stopped moving. So we went into the hospital on the advice of the obstetrician when I had said, look, I haven't felt her for 10 hours. And naively, I actually thought, because there was a misconception that the baby slows down or stops moving just before it's born. And that is, to be honest, completely untrue. It's an old wives' tale. A baby never stops moving throughout the whole pregnancy, but what it does do is has less space to move, and so you feel the movements less strongly.
Yep.
But that's not how it was explained to me by, in layman's terms, by the general public, by friends and family. So I really believed that potentially, whilst I knew that something wasn't quite right, I was also semi-excited that, hang on, maybe she's actually coming right now. So I went into the hospital and they put the Doppler machine on my belly, and at that instant I knew that something wasn't quite right, because she didn't kick the Doppler away and I couldn't hear her strong heartbeat. I could only hear mine, and I panicked. There's actually no word to describe exactly how I felt. It was devastation, fear, disbelief, and anger, shock, sadness, all at once, and I still can't describe it, but I was shaking, I was numb, I wanted to run, I wanted to be held, I wanted to scream. There was lots of things that all happened. But slowly but surely we came to the realisation that through ultrasounds that there was no heartbeat, and it was the worst thing I've ever seen. She was still, completely still, and we never got a perfect ultrasound picture of her because she moved so much throughout the whole pregnancy. So what happened next, that we had to go through our birthing plan. Brad and I had done hypnobirthing and really thought we were, all prepared, and it was kind of strange. We didn't really know how to act or what to do. We started thinking, okay, now I've got to get the birthing suite and I need to have the bath ready and everything like that, and so that we have the best holistic approach to this birth possible. But we needed guidance, and thankfully our obstetrician was there to guide us through that. And I gave birth naturally to Alfie, but it was the worst experience that I've ever had. At the same time, it's the only memories I have of her is her birth. And sorry, I'm getting emotional, but
that's all right.
Is seeing her for the first time. But a delivery suite that has no noise, and there's not the sound of a crying baby, and all you're looking at is a limp, lifeless child. Unbearable.
What happens when you get home?
Well, thankfully, there was some really good support at the hospital. And that's the thing, for stillbirth, there's a lot of after support from people and organisations like Pregnancy Loss Australia, SANS, Stillbirth Foundation and others, which we got bags and information sheets and booklets, and we were so aware that there was other people like us that were going through what we were going through. And that was really good for us and also our family, because people don't know what to say. And even some of our family members didn't know how to act. And so that really guided them to allow them to be honest and approach it honestly and just say how they felt.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go home. I was really reluctant to leave the hospital and our baby, because I wanted to keep her safe. And so I couldn't leave without knowing that she was going to be okay. And I really have to thank Peter Elberg Funeral Homes, because a woman, Carmel, there had actually has been through and has lived with grief her whole life in terms of losing her child, more than 20 years ago now. But she was able to guide us through that and help us along that journey in terms of having to plan a funeral as well as the birth of our child, having simultaneously to greet life and death at the same time is incomprehensible at the time. But when you go home, I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to go back to our house, so we went back to my parents' place for a while. But then a week later, didn't know what to do. I wanted to see her. I wanted, where do you go? So, we actually sat in her nursery, and that somehow brought us some comfort before we had anywhere to go to see her. And now her burial plot, unfortunately, is where we go to get that peace, and that brings us a little bit closer to her. As well, I have decided to approach this positively, because I believe that I wouldn't be in this situation had potentially somebody done this for us. And I wish 20 years ago that somebody had started an organisation that was purely for awareness. So we spoke about it normally, like it wasn't a taboo subject.
Yeah.
And the word stillbirth shouldn't have that fear associated with it, because I'm hoping that with awareness we can bring change, and that those devastating statistics of over 2,500 babies a year can be reduced. It's every 4 hours in Australia that a baby dies.
Which speaks to that ignorance that you talk about. I mean, I didn't know. That absolutely blew my mind when I saw that statistic.
And to be honest, I didn't know either. And it's only through post-event research and post-event information that I'm able to get those statistics. And to be honest, why aren't we given it before? Who's teaching us before the fact that this is a real possibility? And it's not to scare women. It's not to scare families.
Yeah.
It's, our aim is to educate people to the fact, particularly mothers, but not just mothers. I want the ripple effect. There's more than just one person affected by this, more than two people, the mother and the father. It is a ripple effect. It affects families, friends, cousins, loved ones, and that's been evident in the amount of support that we've got in losing Alfie. But yeah, like I said, this is meant to empower women to trust their instincts and spend time with their babies, particularly in the third trimester, monitoring their movements so that they can be aware. And to be honest, the baby has no one else but them to access this world. Prior to birth, the only access to our universe is through its mother. So why not give the mother the power to really understand what's going on inside her, and to trust that her baby's movements are regular, and like taking a multivitamin every day, to sit down and monitor that baby every day and say, yes, I'm happy with how it's moving and how it's progressing, and I feel confident. But the moment you feel uneasy, or you feel like the movements aren't accurate, that you feel strong enough and empowered enough to be able to walk into a hospital, go to the obstetrician, or ring somebody and say, I don't feel comfortable with my baby's movements, I want something checked. Because, in the over 2,500 babies that are born still every year, over 60% of those happen in the third trimester. So that's more than 1,500 babies a year. And of the stillbirths that happen, a third of those are unexplained. So there's a lot of babies out there that there was nothing wrong with, and Alfie was one of those.
It is absolutely staggering that you can sit here and speak passionately and calmly as you do about this just 7 months later. Honestly, that is just one of the more incredible things I've sat here and seen, and I think it's just
Thank
wonderful,
you.
Claire. In fact, we've got a number of people, just to give you some sense, because I know you sit there behind a mic and you don't get a sense of what's happening and who you're connecting with. We've got people texting in, talking about their own experiences. 24 years ago, Pat says, had the same thing. Jenny says, God bless you for sharing this and doing what you're doing. I mean, it's pretty powerful stuff. It's staggering, and honestly, it's a credit to you.
And Patsy would be living with her child.
Her
child is with her for the rest of her life, and is a part of her life, and that's what I want people to give those babies lost to stillbirth the adoration that they deserve, that perhaps they never got.
Let's talk quickly about the City to Bay.
Yes,
you're walking in that.
I am.
And you're raising awareness on this issue. Yeah,
our aim is it's not a fundraising event for us, because it's already a fundraising event for so many. But for us, we hope that there are 50 people at least wearing for awareness, and we have T-shirts that we'd like people to wear to promote the cause and just get the message out there that stillbirth exists, and that it is an issue, and is it changeable, and getting on board. At the moment, we're halfway there. I think we've got about 25 people that are wearing for awareness, some of those with babies, and they're going to be walking with their children, and some who don't have their babies with them and have lost them to stillbirth, and who will be walking with me too, with their empty prams. It's going to be hard, and I have deliberated about whether I can physically do it, but I want to do it. It's important, because I think that's a really strong message. You know, I have all the things, I have all the clothes, I have the pram, I have all the goods that suggest that my baby should be here, but she's not, and I walk for her.
Often when people hear someone talk about something that, you know, as you said at the start, people don't talk about it. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for people to listen to. It's going to be difficult for people to then have that conversations and relate it to their own experience. But that said, they've heard you do it now. How do they... Can they get in contact with your group, Still Aware? How would you like that to happen?
Absolutely. So we have a website, stillaware.org, and on there is this place that I would like people to share their stories. There's a link to an email address, and if you can contact me directly on that email, and I'm happy to, if you want to write your story, to write it with you. I would also like there to be on there, because I found a lot of strength in hearing other people's stories, to be able to walk literally and also not literally, but beside somebody who's been through what you've been through, makes it easier to bear. It doesn't get easier. I've realised that over the 7 months, but it doesn't get better, the loss of your child, but you do get better at it. And through reading and research and through all of the information that I've been able to pull together from different areas, reports and statistics, it has empowered me to be able to speak about stillbirth in a very factual way. And it also it doesn't take the personal side of it away, but rather enables me to speak without getting too emotional. And I find it really hard to talk without crying. And I can't
believe, honestly, it staggers me that you can do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Well, there's a big lump in my throat this whole time. So it's there. It's the pain is real, and it will be with me, I believe, for the rest of my life. But I honour that as well, and because that's my daughter, and she lives on with me, and I'm the only way that she can live on.
Claire Foord, thank you.
Thanks,
Will. Well, that couldn't have been easy. I really appreciate it.
No,
and on behalf of all the people texting in too that have got so much out of hearing you tell that story, thank you on their behalf as well.
Thank you.
Claire Foord, studying the organisation Still Aware.